Hello everybody, my name is Dean. Welcome to Sermons from the Cave. It's been a while, we've had a couple weeks off, but we're back and it's nice to be home in the beauty of our surroundings here. It's late in September 2012 and it's very hot today. The wind's blowing, there's a very, very large fire to the east of us, wildfire. And fortunately it's blowing away from us, so that shouldn't be too much of a concern. But we're going to be talking about another fire today, one that probably was a big concern of Moses's. We're studying the book of Exodus. We're in chapter 3, and there's several scenes in the Bible that I only wish I could have had a time machine like Doctor Who, where he just traveled in and out of time, through these wormholes or whatever, however he did it, but he was able to arrive in times past or times future, and just to be there when Moses was tending his father-in-law Jethro, his sheep, out in the wilderness of Midian, and nobody knows exactly where Midian is. There's no more Midianites. They're long gone. There's some hints in geography, in the world geography, like where Midian might have been. Many people think that it was right around the northern tip of the Gulf of Aqaba, of the Yam Suf or the Red Sea. I believe, as some others do, that it was more east of the Gulf of Aqaba in what is now present-day Saudi Arabia. In fact, if you look at a present-day map, there's an area right in that general vicinity that's called Midian, and it's real close to Midian, and it's like, I don't know. But this is kind of important. It's kind of interesting, kind of important, because the traditional sites of a lot of these religious sites, for instance, like, the Garden Tomb, or, where Jesus was baptized, and, they have all these traditional sites, and of course everybody that owns a piece of land over there wants to say that their site is the traditional site, the original site, but nobody knows for sure, and even the Mount Sinai, we're not really sure. It's called Mount Sinai one place in the Bible, and then it's called Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, where Moses got the Ten Commandments, and where we're going to be at today is Mount Horeb. So I'm going to start reading here in chapter 3. It says that, "Now while Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush." Now, first of all, God is revealing himself to Moses. Now, he delivered Moses from death in the basket, in the ark. He raised him the first 40 years in Pharaoh's court, and then he had to flee for his life after killing the Egyptian, and he ran to Midian. And as I've said before, I believe that the path he took was actually the path that later he would lead the children of Israel out of the bondage in Egypt, and he would lead them to Midian and to the mountain of God, to Mount Horeb. And what's interesting is the angel of the Lord appeared to him. Now it's interesting because many believe that this is a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. Just like when he appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So it's kind of exciting, and once again, now we're seeing him appear to Moses. And he appears in a flame of fire in the midst of a bush that's not consumed. It's not being consumed. It says, "So he looked," now speaking of Moses, "so he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not draw near this place. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Now, of course, we worship a holy God. A God, holy means set apart, sanctified. It means set apart for a specific purpose. God is holy There's no sin. He's a righteous God. There's no sin in him. There's no darkness in him at all. There's no evil in him at all. And he has set himself apart from creation because of our sinfulness. But I believe what God's saying here is for Moses to take off his sandals, because God never wanted anything to separate us from him. Back in the Garden of Eden, he walked with Adam and Eve in the coolness of the garden. He walked with them. He fellowshiped with them. That's all God ever wanted. And that's all God wants from us today, is our fellowship, our obedience, just to rely on him, to love him, and to give him honor and glory. And so right now we see God asking Moses, hey, take off your feet. I don't want anything to separate you from me now. Let's commune together. Let's tabernacle together. So as we go on here, it says this, that now this is important. This is really cool. It says that God says, and he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Now, this is really an important statement, because God's explaining to Moses that he is the one that came to Abraham. Now, these stories would have been in their family. They would have had this family history, oral tradition would have been passed down. And we don't know a lot about Moses' time in Egypt. We know that he probably worshipped at the temple of the sun. I mean, he was brought up in Pharaoh's court. But also Miriam and his sister and his family, they must have been keeping tabs on him. But we're not told a lot about this. So here we have God explaining to Moses who is talking to him. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what's interesting about that is that God Jesus physically appeared to Abraham, remember, underneath the terebinth trees, and then to Isaac, and then to Jacob. He appeared to each one of those. So then God goes on to say that I've surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt. So Moses has been away from Egypt for about 40 years. First 40 years in Egypt, the next 40 years he was in the desert of Midian, tending sheep. God was preparing him for this awesome moment when he would be called to take the word to Pharaoh to let his people go. But God says, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. For I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land, to go to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, Jebusites. And therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen their oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, I will send you, Moses, to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So here we have the call of Moses, the commissioning of Moses. He's getting his marching orders from the commanding officer. And tune in next time to see what Moses' response is. From the beauty of and the wind of this wind cave, Shalom Mishpachah.